Revolution. I'm talking about a revolution. Yeah. Let me clarify. I put a line or two out on social media last week. I can't remember when it was. Tuesday maybe. Wondering who else was in the mood to see a revolution. And I capitalised the R. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't expect to see too much action off the back of it. But by now, in fact, by the end of last week, it had had well over 1 million views. And a day or two later, I put out a second line saying that I'd meant it about wanting to see a revolution. And that's cycling up to 7 figures too, if it hasn't already got there. Now, I'll be clear. I know it's hardly accurate polling of the population at large, but given the reaction generated in relation to what my tweets usually get, it says to me that I struck a nerve. And I struck a nerve all over the world. I get letters from all over the world, and I get reaction on tweets from all over the world. And on this one, all over North America, including Canada, all over Europe, all over the Antipodes, people are getting in touch and saying, "Oh, yes." So I've been contacted, directly as well in the aftermath by all manner of people, some known names, some not, and saying they want to see the same. They want to see change. They want to see revolution. And they're anxious. They're desperate to do something. Now, I have no interest whatever in the kind of looting and burning chaos that some people associate with revolution. The other side in this war that we're involved in have sown quite enough chaos. Thank you very much. So I certainly don't want to see any more. It goes without saying that it's governments that kill people and destroy infrastructure, not general populations. I want to see change for the better. Now, I absolutely and completely refute the notion, the thought, that politics can get us out of this. We are absolutely not going to be able to vote our way out of the mess that we're in. Along with everything else, Parliament, the judiciary, the civil service, the police, education, academia, mainstream media, along with all of that, politics in this country and around the world is a lost cause. It ain't what it used to be, and it's not coming back. Anyone confident of meaningful elections in the future, I say, is dreaming. What's an election now? Vote for terminal cancer or vote for a massive heart attack. The choice is yours. It just depends which way you want to go out. The whole damned lot of them are captured, compromised, bought and paid for. The system is corrupted completely. Any hope of reforming it is a fool's errand. I'm telling you now, the system is done. As the late great US comedian George Carlin said, amongst much else of profound wisdom, he said, the real reason we can't have the 10 Commandments in a courthouse, you cannot post, thou shalt not steal, and thou shalt not commit adultery, and thou shalt not lie in a building full of lawyers, judges and politicians, because it creates a hostile work environment. I mean, I speak with some experience here that some battered old houses can be restored. My wife and I have worked on a few projects like that ourselves over the years, but it only works if the foundations are sound. At other times, you just have to accept that the rot and decay, even just the passage of time, have done too much damage way down deep. And then the only thing you can do, if you've got any sense, is you walk away and build something new. We need standalone alternatives for all that's lost. We actually need something like a provisional government in waiting. We need everything new. And I know it's a big ask, but I've said over and over, on here and on television, that there comes a time when you have to think the unthinkable and do the undoable. Because sometimes there's no alternative. And what lies ahead is one of those times. The system, as we have known it, is going to die anyway, if it's not dead already. And it's so big that it just hasn't quite fallen over yet, being so massive. The hurt is coming. and it's about preparing for the inevitable. Because there's no dodging it. It's coming. It's going to be a hell of a mess to fix, whatever happens, and there's no hiding from that. The question is, do you want what they've got in mind next, or would you prefer to have a say in it? I would prefer to have a say in it. Whatever you call the people responsible for all the mess, globalists, collectivists, communitarians, communists, one world government, the cabal, whatever, the mess is theirs. The mess is theirs. But everything they have in mind for what they have called the Great Reset will fail, sooner or later. It's only a matter of how much harm they do in the meantime. Collectivism always fails, leaving a mountain of corpses behind it. One-size-fits-all solutions never fit anyone and leave more corpses. The world's banking system, which is run for profit by them and not us, is corrupt to the core, and it's being driven off a cliff while I say these words to make way for the next hell. And the next hell will be central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, aided and abetted by complete surveillance made of digital ID. First in the form of some sort of plastic card, but eventually in some chip under the skin. What's been happening for generations now is the deliberate immiseration, which is to say the impoverishment of the middle class, the wholesale movement of money and wealth, property and businesses away from the developed West. Inflation is the invisible tax governments use to dilute the value of the money in your pocket, the money in your salary, the money in your bank account. Governments and banks, and they're becoming, it's hard to tell the difference between the two entities, they create inflation always and only by creating more money. And they always and only create money out of nowhere. They press a button or they say a magic spell and there it is. And they flood the existing money supply with that new deluge and it waters down the value. So if they double the amount at a stroke, you lose 50% of everything you had before in terms of purchasing power. Only governments and banks can do this. And it's the principal weapon. Make no mistake, it's a weapon that they use to make people poor and to make them ultimately dependent on an ever-expanding state. What we're seeing now, what we've been seeing for the last few years, is the hoovering up by the corrupt few of all the money in the world. And when they have every last penny and dime, they'll offer up their pre-planned solution, which is the aforementioned CBDCs. And CBDCs will fail, but not before causing chaos. And then there's the round-the-clock surveillance, planned and presently being executed for the completion of the 15-minute ghettos that the nuts imagine we might want to be concentrated in. Look to the ULEZ scheme in London if you want to see the response of the majority of people to surveillance. I say again, the CBDCs will fail. Anywhere they've been tried on small scale, they fail. People will find other ways to transact with one another in the short term. Everything from barter to alternative mediums of exchange. But bear in mind, like a wounded beast in its death throes, the globalist blob will go down in flames, lashing out and creating havoc all the way down. Who knows what we've got coming in the months ahead? Climate lockdowns, another plandemic, orchestrated food shortages, energy blackouts, financial crash, a cyber emergency, invasion by the spiders from Mars. You name it. It'll come, or they'll tell us it's come. I predict the months ahead will be colourful to say the least. But the beast is dying. And it seems to me that so much of it has been exactly what it looks like, which is the playing out of a geek's fantasy on a global scale. The Odd Squad, the chess club in league with the computer science lot, frustrated by being overlooked and ridiculed at school, have spent a generation's worth of time seeking to build a future in which they are finally looked up to and depended upon for everything. I hear people say there will be some sort of crackdown, the use of force. I don't see it. Mostly because I think the people we're dealing with haven't got the balls. They operate in the shadows, nameless and faceless and out of the public eye for a good reason. Yet when the millions stand up, the few will back down and melt away. There may be trouble ahead, I don't doubt it, but we need a revolution of thought and action in preparation for picking up the pieces, counselling the wounded and the traumatised, and looking ahead to something new and better. The old system is in its death throes, and it had to die anyway. It was sick and rotten and riddled with corruption. I believe enough people want what they always want, which is minimal government, with severely limited ability for that small government to spend our money, and no ability to do it at all without our express permission. Enough people want government to shrink massively, and they want that shrunken government to be responsible for protecting life, freedom and property, and for the rest of the time to keep the hell out of the way of sensible people. I said I was in the mood for a revolution, and I meant it. It's the only way.